Afternoon and welcome to the Women in Business session. It's really nice to have you join us today. My name's Chelsea Shelley. I am the Head of Member Engagement for the UK at ACCA, and I'm delighted to be joined this afternoon by Ellen Fardad and Joanne McCourt, who will be having a great discussion for the next half an hour about what it means to be women in business. So what I'll do next is I'll hand over to the two of them to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what it is they do. So Ellen, I'll come to you first.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Elham Fardad. I am the founder and CEO of the charity Migrant Leaders. You will find us on migrantleaders.org.uk. But before I launched the charity 5 years ago, my life was actually very much a corporate life. I had spent 23 years as a finance director in GE, News Corp, and EY for 10 years. So it was very much a corporate life. But life wasn't always this good. Life wasn't always this good. When I was just 18 years old, I was just a young Iranian migrant growing up in Birmingham with a younger brother to look after, a family who had just separated. I had money problems, visa problems, family problems, all sorts of problems. And I just had one thing going for me. I loved learning. I knew I had to get myself and my family out of that situation by going to university. But I also had a problem because I would have been counted as a foreigner student. And even though I had been earning money teaching maths to anyone whose parents were willing to pay, selling perfumes door to door, working in a shop, I gave that money to my mom for my little brother. So once again, at 18, I was penniless. And I realized the only option open to me was to persuade the British government to count me as a home student, to count me as the Brummie that I knew I was growing up in Birmingham. I camped outside Birmingham City Council offices for 3 days in a row until they took me to someone who listened and helped. And I managed to be given a letter after a few weeks to say that I will be counted as a home student, which meant I've got to go to university to study accounting and finance. Qualified as an accountant with the ACCA, I'm proud to say, with first-time passes. And the ACCA was a lifeline for me, enabling me to catapult my career into accounting and finance. As a result of that, when I had qualified as an accountant at the age of 25, I got my first big break as a financial controller in GE, the company that Thomas Edison founded, as you know. And the rest is history. So here we are.
Thanks, Elham. That's just, an absolutely amazing story. And I've got lots more questions to ask you about all of that. First, I'll just quickly come to you, Jo. Could you just tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everybody. So I'm Jo. I'm the CEO of a procurement consultancy business. So my kind of journey was, it kind of did start out a little bit tough, to be honest. Unfortunately, my parents had a habit with drugs, and off the back of that, I ended up in foster care. So I always loved working, though. So I actually really enjoyed school, not the work studying bit, but being at school, being with friends, being fed, being watered, all the rest of it, and kind of got out of school with all right grades. So I actually, I was switched on. I did do a bit of work. I knew it was important to get some good grades because I knew that would make things easier going forward. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to continue education because I come out of foster care when I was 16. So I had bills to pay, rent to pay, things like that. So, but I'd always worked, even, in summer holidays and things like that. I was a bit of a grafter, always had various jobs throughout my youth. And so I ended up getting a job with a local council at 16 as an admin assistant, so very much an entry-level role, but realised quickly there's a path to ACCA and being an accountant. There were lots of female accountants there, so I was looking up to them thinking, got nice cars, they seem quite independent, that's what I want. So I did a qualification called AAT, which you might not need to follow that path these days, but that would lead me to then be able to do the ACCA qualification without a degree. So they funded that for me as well. So I did my AAT, got into kind of accounting. I then moved and did a role as a financial controller for an agricultural business, which obviously is very random for me. Certainly, I was a city girl from Liverpool, moved to Dorset. So yeah, I was working for that business. And on the side, I was also doing a estate agency, so building up some sales skills there at the weekends. And I started my ACCA there. I started initially by paying for the books and studying that way because it was self-funded, which is, yeah, pretty tough. I then managed to get some sponsorship through work and do online learning. I then moved to work for a fashion retailer. I took a risk and took a 12-month contract in procurement. The reason I did that is because I wanted to get my foot in the door and then move to finance. So I managed to get to finance within a few months once I had my foot in the door. And then they sponsored me to finish my ACCA qualification. And I did a mixture of online and face-to-face. Definitely didn't pass first time. In all cases, I was out having fun at the same time. So my journey was a little bit more stretched out to gain the qualification. But I got there in the end, you know, so within maybe 4 years or so, I'd managed to kind of qualify. And I was working full time. So I was doing this in evenings and weekends, as well as having part-time jobs, you know, as well at the weekends. So I then had an opportunity to move. I was asked if I would move into this kind of startup business in procurement. So again, a huge risk, working for New Look, fashion retailer, big organization. I always wanted to work there. I thought, you know what, I'm going to take this risk. So kind of joined them as head of finance, moved quickly up to CFO, and then later on I've kind of taken on a CEO role. As part of that, I was also given shares. Obviously, I earned them. We sold the business recently, so had experience in, you know, kind of selling a business, going through the DD around that, and also then bought back into the new group I'm in. So the reason I wanted to mention that is from kind of feeling like I might only ever have admin roles. You know, I'm not the brightest person, you know, in the room. I've actually managed to carve out becoming a CEO, but also having skin in the game. And that's something I never was aware of. You know, I didn't know that these opportunities existed. And I just think it's exciting to think you can become an accountant, but because those skills are so valued and so needed in a business, you then also can negotiate having some ownership in that business, so that actually if that business does well or sells, or, you know, you actually can benefit from that. And that's a much bigger opportunity than, say, an annual salary that you would earn. And the other thing that I loved about ACCA is I was focused on independence for obvious reasons. And ACCA meant that actually if I was into fashion, I could go and try and be an accountant for a fashion retailer. If I was, I don't know, if I was into sport, I could go and try and be an accountant for a football club or a sports event or club and things. So I kind of loved the fact that that would just give variety. You know, so I might not be the person playing on the pitch or what have you, but actually I can be a part of that organization, and I enjoy that subject matter. So yeah, so that's me.
Sort of two completely different routes in. I think the word that comes to me from both of those is just that determination that you both needed, whether it's camping outside a council office, just insisting that they see you and do something about it, or kind of coming through the foster system and finding yourself at 16 years old thinking, I have to do something now for myself. Different routes. But so would you say that that determination and the drive you both had is a useful skill in being an accountant? How has that helped both of you? Elham, what about you?
It's helped immensely. And I think, you know, it's perhaps a cliche to say these days that resilience is really key. But if I can conceptualize this for the audience, you know, we often talk about degrees, qualifications, academic performance, even skills and work experience as being essential. They're essential, but they're not enough. In fact, studies have shown that in addition to those things, your character, your characteristics is what determines how far you'll go. So at the end of it, that determination and resilience is really important. I'll give you an example. and I'm allowed to mention this example because I mention it in the book that I have written and will be published in May 2024, called Migrant Magic, which is the story of myself, my life, career, and 60 migrant leaders, mentors, who share their stories as well and their careers in the book Migrant Magic. You can check it on Amazon. When I first joined GE, there were some past due debts on the balance sheet, and the GE were very supportive towards me. They said, look, take your time, don't worry about those. And my determination meant that I said to them, look, give me a chance to collect that debt. Give me a chance to collect that debt. And it was really debt from some Middle Eastern power stations, significant amounts, Middle Eastern power stations that owed GE money. I was an Iranian female and young, really the wrong demographic to collect money from Middle Eastern power stations. Long story short, it was that determination and audacity, the migrant determination, if you like, or the foster care person determination, all the adversities that we all come from. So many of us, meant that I collected the vast majority of that debt and even built a stronger client relationship with those power stations. And my colleagues were intrigued and very pleased, which meant I could then go to GE and negotiate. So 6 months into the job, as a 25-year-old financial controller, I went to GE and said, I have a dream. My dream is to do an executive MBA at Warwick University. And I can't afford it. It's really extortionately expensive. There's no way I don't have that kind of money. I really would love it if GE paid for it. And they did. So I was financial controller by day, Six Sigma rep by night, working with the engineers in the factory at GE. And then 3 nights a week and weekends, I was at Warwick University completing my MBA.
So yeah, it's about that determination, that grit, and also maybe a little bit of cheekiness there. I want you to pay for it. I think what you're saying is, if you want something, you have to ask for what you want, don't you? Be brave.
I call it measured cheekiness, because
if
you can't measure the value you bring the business and you ask for something that I would consider unreasonable, that shows lack of self-awareness, and it's very off-putting to bosses. I always honestly measured the value that I've just brought to them, the value I will bring to them commercially, and I honestly never asked for more back than that.
There's something in there, isn't it? Often you find that women in particular can find it quite difficult to know their worth and demand what they're worth. So I think it's really important that we have these strong female role models out there who do understand their worth and are prepared in business to go and say, this is what I bring to your business, this is what I'm worth, and this is what you should do for me. And I think that's really important, especially as a woman.
But it is very, very important. Really good point. But I have failed on that count. Because when I talk to my male counterparts, they all tell me that they bluffed their way, asked for promotions that they may not have been quite ready for, went for jobs that they only had 60% of the skills and experience. They asked for more value than they were bringing. I've never done any of those things. I only ever managed to get the courage to ask for the value that I absolutely have already brought. And maybe actually I'm very female in that regard, and actually I've maybe failed in that regard.
I think with all you've achieved, it's really difficult to say that there's a failure there, but it's definitely something to reflect upon, is it? That do women in business ask for enough? Jo, I don't know if you've sort of felt similar, as as well as coming from that background. Do you feel that being a woman in business has been a barrier? I mean, accountancy is quite balanced in terms of male female opportunities. How have you found it?
I suppose when I entered the market, I know I don't look that age, but hopefully it was probably a thing. It is still a thing, less of a thing. I think it's a barrier if you allow it to be a barrier, to be honest. And I certainly wouldn't want to be a victim of that. And I wasn't focused on that. There were many more other challenging things that I needed to overcome, and there was nothing I could do about my biology. And I think we've come a long, long way since then, to be honest. There's still a lot of work to do. but yeah, I have been cheeky along the way. Again, though, very measured in that. Actually, if I feel like I'm adding value, I want to make sure that I've, kind of put my stake on the table as well. There's something there around confidence and, also realizing when is a good time to move, not just, I don't know, when you get to that, I don't know, 8-year period or something, you're thinking, oh, it's actually taking control and charge of your career. And I was probably dragged somewhat because I was focused on independence. Whereas what I love about today, and if I was doing it again now, I'd be focused on what am I good at, but what do I actually really love to do? And can I carve something out that's, within that? Because actually, if you enjoy what you're doing as well, then, you're probably going to be more successful at it and, you're just going to have a nicer life. Now, that isn't always possible. But yeah, I'd probably be a bit more kind of planned out in it, but it was more a case of just, there wasn't a master plan. If I'm completely honest, it was just kind of being in a place, reading the room, watching the room, reacting accordingly, moving to that place, doing the same, reacting accordingly. So there was never a master plan, where now I think, you can have a plan. You're exposed to more possibilities these days. So you can have a plan. That doesn't mean you then can't pivot and change that plan as you move through. But yeah, that's probably what I'd do differently. But yeah, there's been challenges, but there'll be challenges that are nothing to do with gender as well. And yeah, I think you only hold yourself back on that if you allow yourself to be, or if you're in an environment where that for some reason that it is just a little bit more like that. But then you can change environment as well. So
I think that's the great thing about being an accountant, is it? You're not restricted to any particular environment because it's a really transferable skill. One thing I did want to come back to, Joanne, you just said there was no master plan. Elham, obviously, she taught maths, she was good at maths, she knew she wanted to go to university and study accountancy. You sort of more fell into it. Am I right in saying that, in that it was an admin role and it wasn't necessarily a plan? So two completely different routes into it. What was the moment for you where you thought, actually, I'm quite into this accountancy stuff, I might pursue it?
Still probably don't fully have the answer to that. No, I was good at maths, as in, out of all the subject, I loved history and maths. Actually, that's an over an exaggeration, but I seem to kind of just be naturally better in those areas. I liked solving problems, and that's maybe like I'm a CEO now, and you have to solve a lot of problems. Admin role. There's a lot of data and, computer stuff going on. And I think I just saw the accountants actually moved into payroll first and then into accounting. So I probably leaned into the area that I was naturally best at, but I wasn't amazing at it. Just that was out of all of my skills, the best one. And then just watched people and saw people that were successful, to be honest, that had nice things. And I thought at the time, because when you're younger, you're a bit more focused maybe on things like that. I certainly was. I thought that looks like, and you can get some independence there. You can stand on your own 2 feet. I'm going to go after that. And then actually doing the accounting qualification, it isn't just numbers, it is numbers, but it's actually a whole load of other stuff. I did a law paper, there's so many different papers. And so actually you're exposed to lots of different things, not just numbers. So actually you can be not great at numbers and learn. There's actually lots of other stuff, lots of written stuff that you have to kind of learn as well. And I probably enjoyed that bit even more so than the numbers. So that's kind of how I fell into it. And then I was good at it. But what I enjoyed about it, so you can have a strategic, a technical role in accounting, but you can actually have what I call a commercial role in accounting, where, I'm not sat auditing. So you can go down that route and do audit and things like that, or you can be doing the statutory accounts for businesses, and you can work in AP. There's so many different roles, even within the finance function. But what I loved is everything kind of starts and ends in finance. If, to do marketing, you need to make sure you've got money to do it. You've got to speak to finance to, I don't know, buy a new office or buy products to sell, or buy how do your clothes get from A to B if you're ordering online? Well, logistics, so that costs money, and finance suddenly are involved in every area of a business. So you can get exposed to the business. That's why I've managed to become a CEO of a company that I'm not qualified in. I'm not qualified in what we sell, the procurement services, but I am qualified in knowing how to run a business and all the, the moving parts of that. And we go into some big brands. We've worked with brands such as River Island, Homebase, Holland & Barrett, the White Company, JD, like lots of really, brands that you will know from the high street. And we go and help them improve their businesses. And actually the big reason why I can do that is because of the qualification and the understanding of how it all works. And without the finances being there, unless you're a not-for-profit businesses, you still need finances there as well. You've got to raise funds. So it does kind of, unfortunately, it starts and ends with money a lot, and therefore finance people are central to that.
Yeah, and like you say, it's not just the maths and the numbers, it's the decision making and the advice and everything else that you learn through that process.
Yeah.
Elham, Jo's just talked about, maybe not a master plan, but as she worked through it, finding what she was good at and pursuing what she was good at. You maybe went through a more traditional route with the accountancy degree and then your ACCA qualification, worked for some of the big financial companies, but you got to a point where you thought, actually, I'm going to go and do my own thing. What helped you make that decision that you were going to go and do your own thing?
It's funny. I had what I thought was a master plan all my life. But it all got toppled, and I'll tell you how, and in a good way. When I was younger, I wanted to do well in my studies, do well in my career as fast as I can, so that I can then, with a settled career, get married and have children and prioritize them, and still have career momentum. That was my master plan, broadly speaking. And I always thought I'll keep staying in the corporates until I rise and rise and rise as high as I can in the corporates. That was the master plan. But life has plans for you sometimes. And curiosity and passion and purpose got the better of me. Because back in 2017, the Parker Review was published, which looked at the ethnic diversity of UK boardrooms, UK corporates. And I was curious. I read that again and again at bedtime, looked at the data, put 1,086 lines on a spreadsheet, looked at the detail behind those individual directors. What's their background, socioeconomically, migrants or not? Really was intrigued by it. And I realized, oh boy, we've got a problem. We've got a social mobility problem in this country. They were all, the migrant directors were all privately educated. I've got to do something about this. I was a migrant who went to 3 stated schools in 3 years. Then I shouldn't have had a chance to do any of these things. There are others out there that need me then to help them. So that passion and purpose and the background I came from got the better of me in a good way. And I launched Migrant Leaders and registered with the Charity Commission at the end of 2017. And here we are now. I am full-time on Migrant Leaders Charity. We've got 1,800 young people on our 5-year development program. We've got 1,400 mentors from 95 FTSE 100 and leading firms. We've got corporate sponsors and partnerships, co-designing, co-delivering workshops, internships, work experiences, connections. It's taken over in a big way. So I just found a problem that my background, skill set, and connections could help with for a group of people I feel passionate about and I care about. And for a country that I really love. This country welcomed me. So I like to help grow the economy. I like to help the people in this country, whatever their background. So sometimes life topples your master plan. And if there are good reasons for that, and you've got the rationale for it, you go for it.
Yeah, I love that message of go for it. It's so easy to have a plan and think you'll stick to it, or not have any plan at all, but life sort of happens around you, doesn't it? And you know that those skills of determination and resilience really help you with those twists and turns that life takes. I'm just conscious of time, but there's so much more I want to ask you. So really, both of you, knowing what you know now and having gone through the journeys you've been on, and now finding yourselves in a really successful place within your own organizations, if you look back, is there anything you think, actually, I would have done that differently if I know what I know now? If I knew it then, I would do this differently.
For me personally, if I may say, and I'll be quick so Joe gets in as well, there were some components of success that I realized are important or even entered my radar much, much, much later in my career. It's only when I launched Migrant Leaders that I realized how important networking is. It so happened that when I launched Migrant Leaders and I contacted all my ex-colleagues and bosses from the previous 20 years, they all came back and volunteered and helped and joined as mentors and connected me. And they did that because I always tried to add value to whoever I worked with. And I tried to help others succeed throughout my life and my career. I never realized I didn't do it for networking. It's because I really enjoyed adding value to others, whether a company or my team or colleagues or friends. And in that moment, I realized, so this is what a network can do for you. Then I realized the value of networking. Had I known that, I would have done the networking bit more actively earlier in my life.
And that makes perfect sense. And Joe, what about you?
I think for me, back when I started, I didn't know there was a whole world out there of different jobs and career opportunities. I was very limited by what I was aware of from the school that I was in and the area that I lived. You know, I was in Liverpool when I was younger, but then I moved to Dorset, Dorchester, Weymouth, you know, quite small in comparison. So I would kind of really widen my net to kind of understand what is out there. There are like hundreds of thousands of different types of jobs. And actually finance helps in any of those jobs, I've learned. So I would kind of, I wish I had the foresight to know to go and look, you know, at what was out there. And then actually, I know this is a bit, you know, it's one of those sayings that's out there, but even now I'd say this to myself, like my only limit is me. Like you know, you can pretty much do anything if you put your mind to it. You find out what's out there, you find out how to speak to the people that are doing it. How did they get there? Because actually we're all the same. And most of us are the same, you know. There's, you know, unless you're a scientist in something, then yeah, maybe you've got to really be really kind of like know about that area. But most things can be learned. And actually most people are really happy to talk about how they got there. So if you're, you know, you're looking at something you're interested in, but you're kind of like hundreds of miles away from that, you know, location, ability, you don't know anyone, go and find someone, because they're going to be on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, wherever online. They're going to be there. Find out how they got there. Ask the questions. And there's no real reason why you probably can't get there. And there's lots of different ways to get there. So I think I wish I just knew that when I was younger. And that's something that's come with age, and probably because the mentors weren't there at that time to kind of say that. But yeah, don't limit yourself.
I think that's great advice. So we've covered is accountancy isn't just for those that like maths. Maybe it helps, maybe that's where your passion starts, but it's about so much more than that in terms of problem solving, decision making, supporting just about every aspect of the business that you find yourself in. And those businesses that you might find yourself in can be so varied. I mean, you reeled off quite a few, Joe, but actually everyone needs an accountant somewhere, that they're working in some way in an organisation. So it really can take you to some exciting places. And your gender, your background, your circumstances shouldn't be a barrier to you pursuing that. And there are all sorts of routes to find where you need to be. And maybe you have a plan, maybe you don't, but you can figure it out and be adaptable, be versatile, and change that. Just to finish off quickly, and as quickly as we can, what do you enjoy most about what it is you do now, Joe?
The variety. It's just, anything can happen in any day. Even day to day, you can have a grand plan, but something will come in and that, you know, changes the direction of your day. So I've got a team of people. They're amazing. You know, you get your energy from other people. So I work with people, we work with great clients, we solve problems, you know, on a weekly basis, daily basis, just the complete variety. You know, as a CFO or a CEO, you're responsible for quite a lot. So it comes with a lot of pressure, responsibility, but actually that's really, you know, that's exciting at the same time. So yeah, lots of variety.
Great. Now, Han, what would you say you enjoy most?
I think I have a feeling it might be something to do with positive psychology, in that I feel like sky's the limit now with the work that I do with my charity. There is no limit to the number of young people we could help on our development program. There's no limit to the number of big companies we can partner with. The sky's the limit. So whatever I do now, scaling that up will add value. And I really enjoy adding value to others, whether it's the beneficiaries as young people or the corporate partners that my charity works with. So it's matching one's personal psychological needs with the job and industry that you've chosen. So yeah, I'm really happy about that.
Love that. I think we said several times there's no limit here, and I think that's just a lovely note to end on as well. So thank you both so much for sharing your journeys and your words of advice. It's been really great to talk to you both, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.